last 24 years, Minnesota's only used 2 of their 27 first-round picks on offensive linemen.
The Minnesota Vikings select Garrett Bradbury, center, North Carolina State.
Irv Smith, tight end from Alabama.
Hey, let's go. Let's make this 8-7-1 better right now. You with me?
Hey, welcome into the TCO studios. Mike Wobschall with the Vikings Entertainment Network, to be joined shortly by an awesome panel. We are here to give you your football fix. The 2019 NFL Draft and Vikings Rookie Camp are behind us. It's time to break it all down. Presented by the Vikings Entertainment Network, this is the 2019 Vikings Draft Review.
The 2019 NFL Draft is now officially open.
Garrett,
Yeah.
you ready to come up to the north and be a Minnesota Viking?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
It starts at the top with Garrett Bradbury. I talked about a guy being a gold jacket guy.
I think Garrett Bradbury and Kirk Cousins is as good a dynamic center and quarterback as you can get coming out of a draft.
Irv Smith, he's a real clean route runner. He's got strong hands, and his best attribute is what he does after the catch.
The Minnesota Vikings select Alexander Madison.
He's a north-south runner when he's lined up in the backfield. Everything's downhill. He's a slithery style to him.
Well, one of my guys is Dylan Mitchell out of Oregon. When you look at this guy, first of all, he can flat out run. 4.4 speed, can definitely get after it. But when you put the tape on, he plays all over the field. He can play in the slot. He can make things happen. He can play on the outside. He can make things happen.
All right, sit down and settle in. It's time to get to work. There's a lot to get to as we review the 2019 NFL Draft from a Vikings perspective. You're going to hear from voice of the Vikings, Paul Allen, and Vikings Radio Network analyst Pete Bercich in a minute. But first, let's welcome in ESPN's Courtney Cronin, who, like a lot of our players, was sick of mock drafts, was sick of 40-yard dashes, and was very happy to be out on a football field last weekend.
Yeah. Seeing guys in shorts, I don't really know how much you can take away from that right now at the beginning of May, but it was nice change of pace there for a little bit to see all the 12 rookies and the undrafted free agents that signed mixing in with some of the guys that were here on a college tryout.
Tracking all of it, well, it's like a rat's nest following what Rick Spielman does in the draft. He came away with the most picks of any team in the NFL this year, 12, and he made a bunch of trades, moving back and moving up. But let's start where the Vikings started, at the top in the first round. You're sitting there watching the draft. The Vikings are on the clock at number 18. You didn't know what they were going to do. Then they took Garrett Bradbury. What'd you think?
I expected something along those lines. We had a mock draft for our own ESPN NFL Nation group, and that's who I mocked the Vikings taking at 18, so I felt pretty proud of that pick.
Yeah.
Given where the interior of the offensive line and some of the fits there and who was available to the Minnesota Vikings at 18, Bradbury seemed like the best fit. Position flexibility, athleticism, outside zone, you hear all those terms thrown around when it comes to this pick, and I think the Vikings hit it out of the park. I mean, he's somebody who, when you look at immediate impact, that's the type of player that you're expecting will fulfill that role.
So you're at rookie minicamp watching Garrett Bradbury and the other rookies perform with other rookies. What can you glean from an experience like that? What did you think of number 56 right off the bat?
Well, he's listed as a center. I think he's a center in the NFL. I mean, Mike Zimmer was a little coy on that, saying that they're going to kind of decide quickly how much they're going to play him at center versus how much they're going to play him at guard. That's the really good thing about a guy like Bradbury. He does give you that position flexibility that maybe you want to utilize your current personnel, Pat Elflein. Maybe you want to move him around over to a guard spot. It gives you that ability to do that. I think that if I'm a betting person, if we're looking at day one of his NFL career, I think week one he will be starting at center. And we did see him take a majority of his snaps there during rookie minicamp, at least the part that was open to the media. I think he's a really athletic player. I think he's going to fit what this team wants to do with its outside zone scheme. I'm sure in the next segment you're going to see just how athletic he is with those reach blocks. I mean, he is a specimen. He is definitely an athletic freak, and a lot of that starts and is very important to have at the line of scrimmage.
You know, the center position inherently, Courtney, is a leadership position. So he's a first-year player. He's going to come on to a team with a lot of veterans. If he is the center, how do you see him fulfilling that role in terms of being a leader of the line?
Well, it's something he talked about at his introductory press conference, that you come into a situation like this, you have to earn the respect of every other person that's lined up next to you on that offensive line. The thing I think is really interesting in his case, he was a baseball player for a very long time. He was a catcher. And I remember asking him when he first got here, how did that help you outside of, maybe some of the physical traits and in preparing for football? How did that help you in terms of the communication aspect? And I mean, when you're calling a game essentially behind the plate, calling pitches, that translates a lot to being under center, hearing the snap count, making sure everybody else, all 4 guys next to you, are doing their jobs. I think that's really going to benefit him when he gets thrown into the trenches as a rookie.
Speaking of calling games, we got 2 guys who call Vikings games for the Vikings Radio Network. It's Paul Allen and Pete Bercich. They go to the tape to break down how Garrett Bradbury can help this Vikings offense.
No doubt. And Courtney may have been tired of seeing these rookies in shorts, but when I first saw Garrett Bradbury, I was like, whoa, welcome to the team. Big and thick, super happy he's on the team. But when you see him in full regalia and shoulder pads, we analyze it with Pete Bercich. You're going to like it.
And one of the things we heard about the zone offense and what exactly is the zone running game. Here he is executing this to perfection. And this is, I'm sure the coaches and the scouts saw this film and said, this is our kind of a guy. The whole goal of a zone offense is to see all these guys leave at the same time. They're all like tied to a string. All these offensive linemen are widening out to the outside. And the goal is right here to get the shoulders of the defensive linemen not parallel with the line of scrimmage, right? But the hard part is this. You have a big gap that you can leave open at certain spots, and the linebacker in this case is going to try to get in there. But you'll see Bradbury's ability to bury his nose in the shoulder of that defensive lineman. And that's important because it takes 2 guys to get that push, to keep that momentum going outside. And he's still able to look back and redirect and get just enough of that linebacker to spring the running back to the second level. So when you're looking for vision, when you're looking for motion, for the ability to get outside, the quickness, those are the things. Now, the one thing about, he's talking about agile centers. Can they pass protect? Do they have an anchor? Here's the situation against Dexter Lawrence of Clemson University. Another what, Paul?
First round pick, New York Giants.
Exactly, a guy who they loved for his size and his ability to move bodies. And what I like here is you see him snap. Now watch his feet. He plants his right foot and his left foot, but he's able to stay square. And watch his pad level this whole time. His pad level is down below. Lawrence is not able to get that push straight up the middle of the field, keeps the quarterback's vision clean. And as Lawrence goes back outside, he's able to wall him off and then continue to push him up the field. So those 2 plays right there give you a great example of his athleticism and why they love him in this zone running scheme, because he's able to not just snap the football, but get horizontally very quickly and able to push and then look back. He has all the different techniques and footwork that they need in this style of running game.
Great selection. Day 2 of the draft, the Vikings got more offensive help. Wobby?
Yeah, and the offensive help, the focus shifted, Courtney, to the skill positions. In the 3rd round, it's running back Alexander Mattison. In the 2nd round, though, it was tight end Irv Smith Jr., a player not many people thought would still be there at number 50, but the Vikings get him.
Yeah, and the reason I like this pick so much for Minnesota is it's an element of the offense that they just haven't had. I mean, that was the first thing that we heard from Rick Spielman, that this gives Kirk Cousins a different type of weapon. We hear that term, move tight end. What does that exactly mean, F tight end? When you think about your traditional tight end who can sometimes be your 6th blocker, lined up in a 3-point stance, this is different than that. You can line him up in the slot. You can put him as an H-back, which he did a ton at Alabama. I think he's a really versatile weapon. What I like about Irv Smith the most, though, is just given what they can do with 12 personnel. I mean, we heard Spielman say that most times they were lined up 3 wide last year. Well, what does Kirk Cousins want this offense to do differently in 2019? Have more explosive plays. If you're using 2 tight end sets with a guy like Irv Smith combined with Kyle Rudolph, you're not only able to exploit some of these single high defenses, you're also able to attack an 8-man box, I think, a lot more effectively because you have 4 vertical threats. And that's what this is really going to do for this offense. It gives Kirk Cousins not only more weapons, but really you can move him around, you can line him up a lot of different places, you can create those mismatches, which is kind of that buzzword when we talk about this tight end position.
Yeah, and you mentioned moving around. Well, the Vikings did that in the 3rd round. They moved back.
Yeah.
they wind up taking a player. Now, we had cameras in the war room, and there was some celebration, Courtney, when the Vikings made this pick, because it was one of Kevin Stefanski's favorite players to watch on tape. Boise State running back Alexander Mattison. What do you see?
I see Latavius Murray part 2, potentially. I mean, that's what they wanted here. When Latavius departed in free agency, they wanted to find that immediate complement for Dalvin Cook. Physically speaking, he's there. He's 5'11", 221. He's a bulldozer. And I think just in terms of that workload, the last 2 years, as Dalvin Cook dealt with some injury issues and Latavius Murray was thrown into that role, that really did become a lead back role. He got better the more carries he got. With a guy like Alexander Mattison, who averaged 4.7 yards per carry in the last 5 games of his junior season, averaged 30 carries per game. The more carries he got, the more effective he got, the more he was able to help the Boise State offense.
Yeah, Pete and PA, a couple of guys, Irv Smith, Alexander Mattison, you might be calling some touchdowns for these guys in year 1 as Vikings. What did you think of the weapons added to Kirk Cousins' arsenal?
I love both of them, and with Irv Smith, we can deep dive on him like all the way back to the early 90s because Pete Bercich played at Notre Dame with Irv Smith Jr.'s father.
Yeah, Irv Smith, who was a teammate of mine and was an unbelievable tight end. He was athletic enough. He played baseball and football at the University of Notre Dame. If you want to know about Irv Smith Jr., just go watch the Indiana game in 1991 and watch what Irv Smith does to about 4 or 5 defenders.
Yeah.
Irv Smith Jr., run after catch is what excites me.
And great job with Courtney and Wabi on Irv Smith Jr. But what about the running back Alexander Mattison? Backup running back Mike Boone, second-year Cincinnati. Veteran Amir Abdullah, he's here now. Dalvin starts. How do you factor Alexander into this?
I think Alexander Mattison, the role that's going to be there is the short yardage and goal line because that was vacated. So he's going to have those. Those are his chances. Those are going to be his carries early on. But his vision and his ability to see the cutback and to set up blocks, I think is going to just be great for him at this level. And, you know, Dalvin Cook has not always been healthy. He may get extended service early in the season.
When we return, we will take a look at the Vikings Day 3 selections. This is the 2019 Vikings Draft Review Show. But first, from the Vikings Entertainment Network, some sounds from Vikings rookie minicamp.
I'm really excited about the fit and the scheme, just from a familiarity standpoint.
First time coming to Minnesota, so it's a blessing, and I'm so excited to be here. It's been a lot of new things, and I'm just enjoying the process so far.
Is this like the best day of weather Minnesota's ever had or something like that?
It's up there.
It gets better?
I can't wait to come in, shake their hand, and get to work with them.
Every fan has their favorite memories, from the pregame tailgate to the miracle moments. Relive your favorite memories or experience them for the first time at the Minnesota Vikings Museum. Ticket information at vikings.com/museum.
We always get measured in this business on wins and losses.
We started working with the Vikings because we recognize them as a technology-forward team. With Microsoft Cloud, machine learning, and AI, they're able to do things, especially with Viper and video, that they never could do before.
This is George. Yeah, let's do it. Thanks, brother.
Okay. Hey, Drew, you ready to be a Minnesota Viking?
Hell yeah, I'm ready, man. I've been ready.
I remember talking with you at the Combine, and every one of your teammates said if they're going to bring one guy with them, they're bringing you. So we're bringing you up here to get ready to roll, okay?
Thank you so much. Time to go to work.
Hey, no, we go get Adam and George Edwards. This linebacker from USC.
The Vikings select Cameron Smith, a linebacker of Southern California.
Paul Watts. Ready to be a Minnesota Viking?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I know they coached you down at the East-West and think you're a heck of a football player. Ole, ready to be a Minnesota Viking?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Armand. How you doing?
How you doing, Coach?
Good. How's it going?
I'm good.
Good. You excited?
Yes, sir. I can't wait.
Day 3 of the 2019 NFL Draft. It's rounds 4 through 7. Don't sleep on those rounds. You can find some good value. We bring the panel all together in one place. Where did the Vikings get the best value on day 3? Courtney, we'll start with you.
I think it was at pick 190 in the 6th round with Armand Watts. I mean, when you look at somebody like that who has really and truly not played a ton of football, in the 2018 season, that was his first chance as a starter. the amount that he grew in that season alone, I think really speaks volumes to where he can go from here on out. When I was just writing some analysis on him, I was looking at who his draft comparison, or his comparison in the NFL was. Do you guys know who it was? It was Shamar Stephen.
There we go.
I
Makes
think
some
that,
sense, yeah.
and obviously the Vikings drafted him a while ago. I think they're going to bring him in here and play him just like they did Stephen when he was a rookie. So between the three technique and nose tackle, I think he's honestly a more athletic version of Stephen. And the thing that impressed me the most, when you look at some of the top interior pass rushers that were taken in the draft, Quinnen Williams, Jeffrey Simmons, you know who's right there at number 3 in terms of pass rush grades for interior defensive linemen of all draft-eligible SEC players?
Armin Watts.
Armin Watts.
Wow. A guy the Vikings unearthed at the East-West Shrine game, where a number of Vikings coaches were on that coaching staff, and they liked what they saw from him in that game and that week of practices. PA, value, day 3, you're sticking with offense.
Yeah, for me, it's a 7th-rounder, Olabisi Johnson. And you know what? With the mocks or where the experts are, told us he was supposed to go, whatever. I was here for rookie camp weekend, and what I saw was a guy who was fast, a guy who, from what I was told, pretty much ran the routes the right way every single time. And, with rookie camp, because there's no contact and it's all new and you're not going against veterans, for me, the biggest thing to accomplish is the scholar of the game aspect of it. If they tell you to do it this way, do it that way. And from what I understand, Olabisi Johnson did it incredibly well. And why I take him is because when it comes to wide receiver 3 here, behind Diggs and Thielen, I think it's a wide open race. And I think they got great value in Olabisi Johnson.
If I know Vikings Radio Network analyst Pete Bercich, like I think we know him, he's going to choose a linebacker for best value on day 3. Am I right?
Well, yeah, Cameron Smith is a fantastic value. You take a look at him, and you may want to look at him as a poor man's kind of Ben Gedeon, right? Mm-hmm. But he's going to have an impact because he's going to be able to play special teams. You're going to see him on the field in all of those situations, and he's also going to get the opportunity to get in and play because we need that depth. You don't see 3 linebackers on the field much anymore, but if you're down one here or there, or Gedeon gets nicked up, or someone gets nicked up, he's the next one to step in. I think he's going to need to use his intelligence and his fundamental skills to get him onto the field to make up for maybe being a step slower than some of the other starting linebackers. However, where you're going to worry about him is in one-on-one pass coverages, and offenses today have the ability to isolate linebackers one-on-one. And for our guys like Kendricks and Barr, they're up to the task. We'll have to see if this young man's up to the task as well.
A lot of experience for Cameron Smith. It wouldn't surprise me if he can impact from day 1, maybe on special teams. But when we think about immediate impact players from this draft class, there might be some options that we can consider. Courtney, anyone stand out to you particularly as a candidate for a day 1 impact?
You know what stood out to me about what Pete said about Alexander Mattison is just Dalvin Cook's durability issues, that a guy like Madison, who is coming here to replace Latavius Murray, might get a lot of run early in the season. Just so you have to be, you have to be careful with Dalvin Cook. And I really truly think this is a 2-back league. And I remember asking Dalvin about this earlier in the offseason, and he said you want that secondary guy to have some of the complementary skills of the number 1 running back, but you also want him to do something kind of totally different. And that's what you have in a between the tackles type guy, big physical back. I think that you can have a nice 1-2 punch here and also incorporate that into whoever's going to be that change of pace back with the number 3.
Paul?
For me, it's Garrett Bradbury.
Yeah.
I mean, there are several that I believe will make impact in 2019. But with Bradbury, let's say it's center, off what you said in the beginning, that is an inherent leadership role. Mm-hmm. So he's the man in the middle, he's the anchor, he's the battery mate for the big ticket investment, Kirk Cousins. Off what we saw with Pete, specifically assuming the way Stefanski and Kubiak run this offense, yeah, I think the impact that he is going to make and the ability to potentially move Elflein, have a nice battle at right guard with Josh Klein, and somebody we left out from a value standpoint. Honestly, I think Drew Samia in the 4th round was terrific value. He's going to battle for a spot. So, I think the absolute obvious and right answer is Garrett Bradbury.
Yeah. Anyone for you, Pete, stands out as a guy who can impact year one, maybe someone in the passing game, maybe someone who you played with their dad?
I'm going to stick with Irv Smith Jr. I think his impact can be immediate. And I remember back when I was coaching, we played a guy named Shockey. Remember him from the New York Giants?
Jeremy Shockey.
And they would come out there and they'd put 2 tight ends in the game, but they would use him flexed out as a wide receiver. They would put 2 tight ends on the line and still throw the football to him, and they could run because he could block. Irv Smith Jr., he may not hang his hat on the blocking end of it, but he does work hard. He does get after guys, and just that and that zone running game might be enough. But then you get the play actions off of it, and this kid, like I said, can run after the catch, and that's something that we love our current stable of tight ends, but Rudolph, we have not seen that run after catch ability.
And with Irv Smith, we've talked about wide receiver 3. My value guy was Olabisi Johnson. Treadwell's in the mix, BB, Zylstra, Dylan Mitchell, and so on. But with Irv Smith, that and Kyle Rudolph, of course, that eases the desire or the need to absolutely have a wide receiver jump up and kind of jump out of his skin. Irv Smith can almost be wide receiver 3 or 4, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the game that you can play with the personnel. So the coaches are going to have that flexibility to put 2 tight ends in, put them on either side, and then run that zone left and right. And then just all you got to do is flex a guy out. And you can do your 3-wide passing game, your 2-minute offense, or your 3-wide passing game out of that same personnel group. So we see so much more nickel and substitution defenses with an extra DB. You throw that extra, you can do run pass option, the extra DB.
Yeah.
Run the ball, run the cutback to the defensive back. If you got 3 linebackers in there, I think Irv Smith Jr. matches up very well against any linebacker in the NFL in one-on-one pass coverage.
Love it.
All right, the next step for these rookies, they get incorporated into the Vikings offseason program. So they're going to be out on the field working and practicing against the Vikings veterans. So when we consider that, matchups to watch for these rookies going against the veterans.
When we talked to Irv Smith on the conference call right after he was drafted, he's feeling good, the energy's flowing, and he made a really profound statement that I don't think any linebacker or safety can hang with me one-on-one.
I'm sure Zimmer will.
So I am ready to see Harrison Smith, Irv Smith Jr. Yeah. I am ready for that matchup. I think that is a very much welcome to the NFL type moment that he's about to experience. He's a really good route runner. As Pete mentioned, blocking might not be his most favorite thing to do, but he's going to learn how to do it here. And I think when you take a look at what's going to happen at OTAs and then transitioning into training camp, this is his opportunity to not be just a receiving tight end. That's what he said he doesn't want to be classified as. He wants to be classified as a complete tight end. So it's really going to take his entire arsenal, his entire repertoire to do that. And I think the safeties on this team are really going to make him work for it.
PA?
Well, with Jake Browning, the winningest quarterback in the history of Pac-12 football, all right? You've had a bunch of good quarterbacks in the Pac-10 and the Pac-12. Jake Browning has won more games than any of them. We know it's the ultimate team game, so it's not all Jake. When I saw Jake at rookie minicamp, he reminded me of Case Keenum. Now, Case's arm is not the strongest in the history of the NFL, but Case on the move can be lethal. Jake on the move, as I saw and I've seen at Washington, can be lethal. So now you look at the QB2 situation, Sean Mannion, 6'6", big arm. Kyle Sloter, he's been here with Stefanski, but only preseason equity. And neither one has thrown a touchdown in a regular season game. So Mannion, Sloter, Browning, I think that quarterback 2 race is fantastic. It makes preseason games that much more fun, and I can't wait to see Jake Browning in organized team activities against the first and second defense.
That's something Mike Zimmer talked about at rookie minicamp, that athleticism aspects to stand out from Browning in this backup quarterback competition. And that's something that,
he's dynamite on the bootleg.
And Kirk Cousins, might not be the most mobile outside of the pocket. I think that you have something totally different in a Jake Browning, and that might give him the edge in that battle.
And this is an important position for practices, because if you don't have quality quarterbacks who can run a practice, no one is getting any work. So the fact that there's a pretty solid stable in there behind Kirk Cousins bodes well for OTAs, mini camps, and training camps.
Well, Courtney covers the games. Pete and I call it, and you're at all the games. Think about fourth quarters of preseason games. You're looking for intrigue. Here comes Jake Browning trying to win the QB2 spot. And I remember a couple of years ago when it was Case Keenum and Taylor Heineke. In the offseason, I didn't really think much of Case Keenum. Then they started playing preseason games, and it almost was like Case thinking, am I really in a battle with this undrafted Old Dominion guy? Yeah. And Case tore it up in the preseason and eventually supplanted Bradford and won a lot of games. So that's a lot of intrigue.
Now, Pete, in the 4th round, Rick Spielman said, enough with this moving back stuff. We're moving up to go get a guy. And it was a guard, Drew Samia. And looking at some plays for you to break down on film later, I think Drew Samia is going to be a guy that you like to watch. What do you think about him as a guy who can come in here and battle right away during camp?
The reason I like Drew Samia is because he does just that. He battles. We watched the film of him and how he blocks down the field, and when a guy goes on the ground, he likes to give him the knee in the back, and just he's a grinder. Now he's going to be challenged a little bit. He's height. He's height, 6'5". The long arm guard sometimes, but in this day and age of 3 techniques and pass rushers, I think that may help him. But I love a guy who's going to work like he does. I love a guy who's going to grind it out. And those are the guys that are going to move up and they're going to improve. And oh, by the way, we signed Josh Klein to a cap-friendly contract. But if Samia can step up and be that guy, then Klein is not, he could be that veteran backup presence for both sides. Or if the cap gets too tight, you have an option there to release him and free up some money.
But Courtney and Pete, one thing that I think hurts Samia and those of his ilk on defensive and offensive lines, with the way things are constructed rules-wise in the NFL, no contact at rookie minicamp, no contact at organized team activities or minicamp. So, I mean, he can't come in at a physical position and immediately impose his will to win a starting job. So, I mean, he has to do a lot in a short amount of time.
And I agree with you 100%. If you talk to NFL coaches about how this game has changed over the last 10 years, that's the one thing that they'll say is that these draft picks that come in, they're number one, not as game ready because spring practice in college has all been cut back, and now they have less physical time to work with them and develop that. So it may be a season or two before those physical positions can really take off and get better.
And the best thing here with a guy like Drew Samia is that you have depth now. That's something that this offensive line has gone through a lot of injuries the last few years. Like, at minimum, they should be pretty happy that they have a really versatile depth option who could probably swing around to several different positions on the interior.
All right, thank you, panelists. That's going to do it for the 2019 Vikings Draft Review Show presented by the Vikings Entertainment Network. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Vikings.com for more coverage of what the Vikings did in the offseason and at the 2019 NFL Draft.